Welcome to The Bone, the podcast that goes deeper. Here we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the issues that matter. From real stories to raw truths, we dive deep into the conversations that shape our world and challenge our thinking. We're not afraid to dig in and get to the marrow of it all. Whether it's life, culture, or business in sports medicine, we're here to break it down raw and real. No filters, no fluff, just to the bone. With your host, Shelby Daly, we're getting to the bone. This is a clinically pressed, approved CEU podcast. Find the quiz to gain credit at clinicallypressed.org/courses. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Bone. Today we have Julia, and you probably know her from social media. She has done a great job of educating athletic trainers on what it takes to go from the traditional setting to sales, or I would say non-traditional, which I don't think we really categorize sales into. So I wanted to have her on to talk about her journey and why she's made a change and explore the other options that are out there for athletic trainers. So welcome to the show, Julia.
Thanks, Shelby. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So for people that might not know who you are or what your exact background is, can you walk us through your journey from traditional athletic training to sports technology and medical sales?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Julia De La Rosa. I just got married, so I was formerly Julia Ford. But I started out as an athletic trainer about 12 years ago now, I guess. I graduated from Towson University, undergraduate athletic training, and then went on to do a GA position at North Carolina. From there, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do as an athletic trainer, and I got placed with football. So at first I was not excited about it, but as I began my journey at North Carolina, it was a great fit. I really enjoyed football and had a great time working with that program. So I went on to work for another 8-9 years in football athletic training. So I went to the New York Jets as a seasonal intern, and then over to the University of Colorado, and then back to the New York Jets as a full-time staff member before I left clinical athletic training about 2 years ago to come over into the sales world.
Yeah. So going from a high-level football environment, what originally drew you to athletic training and going the professional sports route?
Yeah, I originally picked my undergraduate degree based off of an athletic training program that was going to work with Division I sports. So Towson was a great fit there, and I didn't know what sports I wanted to work. I tried everything. I really enjoyed even like the high school setting. I had a great experience there. And then when I was leaving, I wasn't sure what direction I wanted to go. So that's how I chose North Carolina, because you got to work with their varsity programs. You got to be a teacher to undergraduate students, and then also conduct a master's level thesis. So you got to be part of that research world. So I thought North Carolina would be a great place to figure out what I wanted to do next.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying like, I'll work with club sports, I'll do anything you want. I just want to come down and be a part of the whole program. So when I got selected for football, I was very surprised, but it worked out great. Like I said, I didn't know that that's what I was going to excel at there, but it was a really great program and a great staff that we had at North Carolina. So I learned a lot and really enjoyed it. So, I wanted to continue to pursue football athletic training, but I did have in the back of my mind that it wasn't going to last forever, that it would be something that I would do while I was younger and while I enjoyed it. And then at some point there would be a time to look for something different.
Yeah. So when you obviously already had this in your mind, I think some people try to live out that setting as long as they can sometimes. What was the point that you were like, I think it's time to move on to the next thing outside of professional sports or just traditional athletic training?
Yeah, I don't think it was like one day or one moment. Like I said, I definitely knew at a young age that it wasn't going to be my forever. I wasn't sure what that next step would be, but I knew that the demanding schedule and the sacrifices that you have to make to be a football athletic trainer were not going to be what I wanted to do long term. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to travel, I'm going to meet great people, I'm going to work really hard while I'm younger. And then once it's not as fun anymore, that's when I'll start to look at something different. So, I still really enjoyed all of the time that I had there. And then, like I said, when it just wasn't as enjoyable and missing another Thanksgiving or another Christmas was not that I wanted to do anymore, that's when I started looking at what my options would be.
Gotcha. So when you were thinking about the transition, did you really think that medical sales was going to be the next step, or how did you get introduced to that?
Yeah, I had actually never considered sales before. I started looking at positions and thought about working in the clinic setting. In New Jersey, there are a lot of limitations on athletic trainers versus when I lived in Colorado, they had great programs where you could assist in surgery and you had a lot more autonomy. But in New Jersey, there are a lot of limitations to our practice. And because of that, the pay is very, very low.
Mm.
So I started looking at continuing patient care roles. That just wasn't sustainable. I would have had to get a second job. So I immediately took that off of the table and started looking at other options. I had a few colleagues who I had worked with in the past who had moved into the sports technology or medical device area. They worked more in customer service. So I reached out to them to see how their experiences were. And they all had great, great experiences. They said that they didn't regret their decision to move and that they were excited to be part of the companies that they're a part of. So once we started talking about that, they also had mentioned that there were a lot more openings in sales versus customer service, and that if that was something that I was comfortable with, I should look at that route. So that's when I started our sales positions.
Well, so I feel that you are an outlier a bit with you already predetermining that, I'm gonna evolve in my setting later in life. Didn't know necessarily when that was gonna happen. But do you feel that a lot of athletic trainers struggle with the identity of these different positions and what they require? You're not doing traditional athletic training, doing emergency care, it's just a different setting at the end of the day. What are your thoughts on athletic trainers and considering medical sales?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a transition compared to physically taking care of someone every single day and seeing their progress and really feeling that pride and that joy that you were a part of that and that you helped someone get better and you see the immediate results. Even from one treatment rehab session, seeing them come in to leaving that day and being better than when they walked in the door. So that part I definitely miss for sure. But I think something that I have connected with a lot of athletes in the sales world about is that we still are caring for patients just in a different way now. So we may not be there one on one with them, but we are part of that care team just in a new way. So trying to reframe and trying to think of it that way definitely has helped. But of course, you miss the one on one relationships and getting to see people succeed like that.
Yeah. So I guess what does the day in the life of a medical sales rep look like? I mean, it's definitely way different than in the athletic training clinic, but what's all happening? What do you need to know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely different depending on what setting you go into. So there's various settings that you could be in. You could work in the OR where you're physically going to the OR every day and you're essentially assisting in surgeries because you're the representative for maybe the drill that they're using or
Mm.
the that are going into that patient. So you can be physically present in an office. My role is not. I work from home. I work with Henry Schein right now. So I work in medical distribution sales. So we have thousands and thousands of products that we sell. So it's not necessarily one thing that I am calling up and saying, hey, have you guys checked out this one product? So it's more about the incoming inquiries that we get where I'll have athletic trainers reach out and say, hey, I'm looking for something as simple as band-aids, or maybe I'm looking for a laser this summer. I'm going to consider that. What are the options? And then I'll be able to present them with several options that we have, and then they can decide what works best for them. So a
Mhm.
lot of and from my standpoint, I can do that from home. What I also do as a field rep with Henry Schein is I go and I meet people in person. So I'll I'll go to, right now is conference season. So we'll go to all of the athletic training, state, regional, national athletic training meetings and conferences, sport conference meetings. I just came back from one last night where we were with two of the conferences, and we were able to meet all of those athletic trainers and discuss what they're doing and everything that's going on in their practice. So I do travel, or I can travel to the people in my territory. So I could go out onto the road and meet with people to see what projects they have coming up, or maybe they just finished a product to make sure that everything went smoothly, to check in with them and see how they're doing and what they're looking for.
That's interesting because I know working or scheduling athletic trainers for per diem and all that, a lot of people are really interested in traveling. So sales may be the way to plug in and get around the world. So I never knew that was an option.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I love traveling. Especially at this point in my life, I love getting on a plane and going to see new places. I think something that I'm sure you can relate to is, as athletic trainers, when we travel with our teams, you just see the game day facilities, especially in football. It'll just be a game day locker room and you're in and out. But now on this side of things, I get to see the actual athletic training rooms that people are working in every day and the spaces that they create. And it's really exciting. It's a very fun experience to be able to see what everyone does with their space.
Yeah. Well, and not that you have to go super in depth, but some athletic trainers just need a change in routine. I think burnout, we always think it's long hours, not being able to progress in decision making, all the red tape and stuff. And sometimes it's just a change to your day-to-day life, mixing it up. What do you think about burnout in athletic training? And do you think it's really the variables that we keep talking about, like the hours, the pay, the bureaucracy? Do you think there's any variables that we're missing after you've moved to sales?
No, I think a lot of the points that we all talk about are the reasons why people leave athletic training. I don't think it's any, secret that people are keeping, but I do think that moving the conversation forward seems to have happened a lot more recently with you, Shelby, with other people who are getting out there and publicly speaking about it. Because the more that we can all speak about the struggles we're going through, we can also help each other with solutions, and give each other, hey, this is what maybe your university or maybe your practice is having a lot of burnout because of the hours, because there's a 5 a.m. lift and there's a 9 p.m. lift. And the hours are just crushing your staff. So you're having a lot of staff turnover. So that may be in one situation, but in another area, they just don't have the compensation. Maybe the pay is just too low. They don't have maybe they're only having a 12-hour day, but the compensation doesn't match that. So that's where they're getting burnout, is people still have to pick up additional coverage, or maybe they're driving for Uber Eats because they don't have the compensation to match that. So I think it is individualized to each place. But yes, I think a lot of the things that we do talk about, are the reasons why you do see burnout.
Yeah. And again, you obviously had set milestones in where you wanted to end up with your coworkers. Did you notice anything that your sales position addresses better than the traditional athletic training room?
I think that, yes, it depends on what you like. For me in sales, I think a lot of what I did throughout my career was I was very ambitious, and I tried very hard to strive for positions that people told me, you can't do that. You can't be. So I vividly remember being an undergrad and people telling me you cannot work in the NFL. So that to me was a driver to say, okay, how am I going to put myself above and beyond to get into those positions and prove people wrong, and to really strive to be the best person that I can be and be the best athletic trainer I can be. So I think now I just take those skills and I transfer it into sales to say, okay, how am I going to be the best salesperson how I can be? How can I control all of these new variables and try to strive to be the best and strive to succeed here? So I think that a lot of the things that athletic trainers struggle with is loss of control, but I think you find control that is okay with you, right? So maybe for me, not being able to control my schedule is where I knew I was not going to last forever, right? I knew that being told that I had to be there on Thanksgiving Day, on Christmas Day, and I had no control over that, I did not enjoy. The hours that I put into my job there and the hours that I put into my job here, look different as far as I get to control that aspect and I get to say, hey, okay, I'm not working on Christmas Day, but maybe I get home from a conference late last night and I want to, get out some emails. I want to make sure that everyone has what they need, even though it's 8 p.m. because I just landed. But now, okay, now the weekend sets in, and on Saturday, I can do what I need to do because I took care of things during the week. So I think it just depends on what you want to control, what aspects of your life you want to control. And staying in clinical athletic training and staying in the traditional setting, you have control over your stability. And obviously that changes a little bit now with the landscape of sports. But with sales, I don't necessarily have maybe control over that stability, right? Like the company may want less salespeople. They may, go have a dip. So you need to be performing versus traditionally in athletic training roles in collegiate universities, if you were doing your job, you were showing up, you had more stability and predictability versus sales, there may not be as much predictability.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's money dependent on how sales are going, where in the clinical setting, it's more on, showing up, making sure things are covered, the fireman aspect of making sure someone's available. So I think those are things that I've tried to talk about. And how do you weigh what you want? I mean, you probably have more opportunity to make more money in sales because it's dependent on the work that you put in and how many customers you bring in sales, where in the clinical athletic training room, it's the stability part that you're talking about. Like, what's kind of expected, you're there, you're reactive most of the time of what injuries are coming in. So, that's where I have a hard time when people are complaining about the clinical traditional room. And it's like, well, it's very stable. You get benefits, what your salary is going to be. You're not really going to get cut unless, the school shuts down or they cut the athletics program. But, what is secure and safety to you? Is it more money or is it having a job for 12 months of the year?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just individual to each person and what they enjoy doing. I don't think that sales is for people who, can't handle rejection. So I may reach out to a bunch of people to say, hey, this is what's going on. How are you guys? What's going on? And I get ghosted. And that's okay. I just have to keep it rolling. So I think that if but versus other people are, may internalize that and be like, oh my gosh, they didn't answer. Versus I'm like, hit them up again. I have no problem. So I think it just depends on what your personality is and what your comfort level is. But if this is an area where you think that you could succeed and you do have an athletic training background, I think you absolutely will. And that's why I want to be an advocate for athletic trainers who say, hey, you know what, I can handle rejection. I do have the ambition to go out and create something out of nothing. I think that they'll do great in this setting. And I just want to be a voice for those people.
Yeah. So there's the personal characteristics or needs that somebody needs or wants in a job. But when an actual athletic trainer, just in general, broad strokes, with our clinical skills and everything, do you feel, or what do you feel is the most transferable skill to sales from clinical athletic training?
I think it's our experience in the athletic training room. Every aspect of it really does translate into the sales world. And I've definitely talked a lot about this, but the overall communication that you do every day, that translates into every single aspect of what I do right now, because you have the ability to communicate with physicians, coaches, colleagues. Maybe it's a conference administrator who's setting up travel, whatever it may be. You have the ability to communicate with so many different types of people. And that skill is undervalued. Not everyone can do that. And then you also just have experience in the setting. So if you're looking into medical sales or you're looking into sports technology sales, you're coming from a setting where you know the landscape, you understand how doctors' offices run. So if you're maybe selling a knee brace, right now you know who to call. If they said, hey, I need you to sell a knee brace to Ohio State, you know who you should call. You know you're going to get on Google and you know who you're looking for versus a communication business major who walks in, they're like, well, I don't know. There's a directory of a million people versus you're like, I'm going to call their athletic trainers because they're putting knee braces on people. Versus maybe if you're calling on a physician's office and you're emailing the physician nonstop and you're not getting any reply. Well, athletic trainers know physicians are not going to reply to your email. Their office managers will. So automatically that you have to reach out to the office manager, not the actual physician. So I think all of those little things that you don't even realize you bring so much value to sales positions.
Why do you think there's such a disconnect between athletic trainers understanding the business characteristics and what they do day to day in the clinic to transferring those to like a sales role? Why do people think they can't do it?
I think because it's unspoken. A lot of those tasks that we do, we don't necessarily put on a resume, or we weren't in an athletic training class that said, hey, you're going to do all of these things and here's how you do them. We were too busy learning about injury evaluation and rehab techniques and different, modalities, the science behind modalities. We weren't talking so much about administrative tasks and how to handle those. So they're just things that you do automatically. I think it also is a part of the landscape that you're in when you're working with difficult personalities. Sports is a high pressure situation. So you end up a lot of the time in conflict, whether you want to be there or not. It is high pressure and it is conflict. So you inevitably survive in advance. You learn how to work through those situations and those hard, difficult situations more often than other people do. And I don't know that you necessarily recognize that, or someone tells you, because you don't know it's going to happen until it's happening. So I think that's why a lot of athletic trainers don't realize how much they really do in that area, is we just don't talk about it. We just deal with it.
So I know there's a big debate on third-party reimbursement, insurance, whatever. Do you think part of it is that there isn't a dollar amount tied to each treatment, each evaluation, all that type of stuff, where like in sales, you know how much your brace or your equipment, the device, technology is going to be. So you kind of know what is the most valuable thing that you can sell because it has a price point on it. Do you think because we are more in the socialized healthcare where we're just doing our best, we're going to throw everything we know or can do to try to get that athlete back or feeling better? No, we have dispensable resources. At the end of the day, I mean, obviously some high schools maybe have limitations on supplies and really try to make their budget stretch. But after moving to sales, do you feel like you have a little bit more understanding feeling on what a dollar amount on a skill or, just working with dollars amounts might give you a better understanding of the business aspects, I guess? I don't know how to word that question.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. And yes, absolutely. I think that is the hardest part about moving athletic training forward, is the fact that we are not set up for third-party reimbursement the way that physical therapists, occupational therapists, and nurses are set up for. They itemize their services and they have a dollar amount associated with that, which shows value to their organizations because of reimbursement purposes, or even if, whatever it may be, it shows dollar value. Athletic trainers do not have that. I think that sales has shown me that a bit, but even more so when I was an athletic trainer at the University of Colorado. They were phenomenal. Miguel Rueda had a huge impact at setting that up, where we started billing for people and we started billing for some of the services in the athletic training room. And he was on the forefront of doing that. And even though it was so much work, because we all know you walk into a doctor's office and there's more administrative people there than there are clinicians because of all of the paperwork, but he was very instrumental in setting that up for even 1 to 2 days a year for physicals to show a dollar value to what we were doing in the athletic training room with all of the student athletes. And if we figure out how to set that up on a more routine basis, I think administration and I think insurance companies would be floored at how much we actually do. And if you treated that like a physical therapy clinic, what our true value is.
Yeah. No, that's where working with athletic trainers, trying to determine what your value is. And it's like, well, I don't think you've actually sat down and itemized all the things that you've done in just a 3-month period and how much dollar value work you've done. I mean, I think some clinics, try to do ICD codes when they're putting in their notes and stuff, but obviously still some things they fall through the cracks. So how are you supposed to capture some of those other things? Or we don't even know that some of those things are billable. They may not exist in the traditional ICD codes, but there has to be a way to put value on it in a dollar amount. And I mean, I struggle because it's like, well, that maybe in physical therapy, we struggle with it when we send our athletes post-surgery is it's not necessarily the best care, but it's what insurance has approved. So it's that weird balance of, well, how do you get the best care without the influence of insurance, and what is the value to that person? Because there's patient-centered care at the end of the day. So if somebody's afraid of needles, I'm not necessarily going to do that, even though it may be a higher value than doing cupping or something. So it's a very interesting world, and I don't necessarily want to funnel directly in that, but we do need to have broader conversations about how do we actually capture the value, because we still don't really have a dollar amount on what our value is, and it's dependent obviously in every situation.
Absolutely. And I think that it's a huge undertaking to look at. I tip my hat to all of the programs who are doing that, who are establishing billing. But I think if you're looking at that or you're considering it, or even just not even submitting the bills, but just wanting to put a dollar value, don't look at it as we have to do this every day and capture every one day. Pick
Yeah.
one day is going to itemize all of the services that they did, or maybe it's physical day and you run through how many ECGs you did, how many blood pressure, how many physical exams were done, and you can create a dollar value off of that to start, rather than thinking every single day we have to itemize everything we're doing, because that's just not realistic. When you walk into any practice, the clinicians are not the ones who are doing all of that itemization. They have people who are there to support those needs. But to be able to advocate for yourself and your program, I think even just picking 1 or 2 days a year to say, hey, this is all that we did, and this is a dollar amount that it would lead up to, is good information to have.
Mm-hmm. So going back to the transition, if somebody was considering going to sales, I feel the transitions are usually like industrial setting or going to sales. What should someone consider when they want to apply for these jobs? Like what are good things to put on their resume, and who should they be approaching if they're looking for these types of jobs?
Yeah, if they're looking for a medical sales job or a sports technology sales job, I think that you have to look at what you're using right now is the first step. So if you're saying, yes, sales is what I want to do, that's the route I want to go, look around in your athletic training room and what are you using and what do you really love and what do you believe in? Because those are the products that you should be selling. If you have, a TENS unit that you think is a piece of garbage, you probably should not sell that unit. But on the other hand, if you've been using a BFR system for the last decade and you've seen it make significant impact on your athletes and their return to play, well, that may be a great fit. So looking around at the products and the companies that you're currently interacting with, they are all candidates for your sales position, and someone that you would be able to aid and you'd be able to help because you were a customer and you can speak directly to how those products work. So I would say definitely looking there without pigeonholing yourself though into maybe saying 20 products and saying, okay, I need to look at these 20 companies and that's it. There are thousands of medical sales roles that are online that would be your entry step and your first step into the industry. So they may not be something that you've ever heard of, but you could get definitely involved in a lot of OR sales. You could do a lot of medical sales, as far as even someone that I had on sidelines to sales. He works for a vision company. So in vision ophthalmology surgical devices. So something that he said, I had no experience in that before, but he does have medical terminology. He does have an understanding of, how physicians work. So he is already a candidate for those positions over someone who is just came out of school with an MBA or whatever it may be.
Yeah. And you had talked about like working in the OR, overseeing the devices that are being used or the tools. Wow, where was I going with that question? Do these companies have you there to give feedback on how the equipment is being used, or is it more just to oversee the physicians or whoever's using the equipment that they're using it right, educating them?
Yeah, so I think a little bit of both, right? You are presenting as we know, there are new techniques new surgical techniques evolving every single day. And how we did surgery 15, 30 years ago is not how we do it today, and it won't be how we do it in 5 years from now. So all of these companies are developing products and they're developing techniques for surgeons to improve efficiency and, decrease the invasiveness of surgeries. So you're there as a representative of that company and that product. You're there to help. The physicians have been trained in these products, but you're there to be the pro, to say, hey, this is how this works. If you encounter, maybe you're in a surgery and you encounter something, you say, hey, doc, we need to use a bigger anchor than that. This size lesion, would be better suited for our larger size anchor. So you're there to help support them in that way. And if you talk to OR sales athletic trainers, they'll say all the time that they're in the OR and the doc will look over to them and say, what do you think? Or what product should we go with here? So they are consulted and they are used in those scenarios. Absolutely.
Okay. So you have your social media, the Sideline to Sales that you mentioned. What inspired you to create it, and what are you trying to achieve with your show?
Yeah, when I was an NFL athletic trainer, I got so many DMs from younger athletic trainers asking, "Hey, can I talk to you? How did you get there?" And it was a lot, but I thought when I got out, I was like, "Okay, that's going to slow down because, no one's interested anymore in what I'm doing." But I actually got even more messages from athletic trainers, younger to older, saying, "Hey, I like what you're doing. I'd love to talk to you and do something similar," or "How did you get there?" So I was seeing a trend in a lot of the same questions, and I was trying to make time to talk to all of these individuals and to, give them any tips or advice that I had, and it just became a lot. So something that I started doing was posting my experiences so that, the people that I couldn't necessarily connect with one-on-one, they would still have the information. And that's where lines to sales came in. Was I was getting a lot of the same questions and a lot of the same feedback from people, was that they were looking for information, did not know where to get it. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put everything in one spot so that the people who want to access this information and, want to go down this route, they can access the information and get, help and guidance in taking those first steps.
Yeah. And I guess what's kind of the most common inquiry that you get through your DMs?
Yeah, would be just, how do I take the first step? What's the first thing to do? Like, I'm in my clinical athletic training role today and I have decided I want to leave. What do I do now?
Mhm.
So absolutely the question that I get the most is, what should I do? I've decided I want to do it now.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I don't know if many programs have created clinical rotations within sales, really. It's very rare. So I know that they've definitely started getting into the hospital settings, but sales is still a missing segment of the experience in your educational program.
Yeah, it's not talked about, and with everything that they have to go through now, in the athletic training programs in such a short amount of time, I can't imagine that they would add anything like it just because there's so much to cover. So, I'm happy to put things out there, and that's where, we're very lucky to be in 2026 to be able to have access to information, and to be able to see things and see what people are doing and to be able to get help if you need it.
Yeah. And so you mentioned that you're working remotely. How does that fit in with the team dynamic of your company?
Yeah, so we work remotely unless I'm traveling to conferences or traveling to see clients. I really enjoy it. The team that I'm on right now with Henry Schein is a phenomenal group of people who have so many years of experience. It's really incredible. It's really inspiring. So it was very exciting for myself to come over here because as I was an athletic trainer for the last 10 years, when I was practicing, I would always call Henry Schein, and Justin Hickam was my rep. He was the best, and he knew everything. I would call him all the time and say, I need a spine board. What do you think I should get?" He was like, "Oh, this is a great product," or "You need the bigger one. You have big guys over there." So he always knew what to recommend. He always knew how to be a helping hand and was so reliable for us as athletic trainers. So once the opportunity came to come over and join the team, I absolutely was so excited to come over because right away, the first week I had, I'm with people on the team like Jeff Nelson, like Doyne Dawkins, who are they've been in this business for 20 years and they've, have seen so much and they've aided athletic trainers and are athletic trainers for, for so long. So it's been a great part to be a part of this team. And I think we're all very supportive, even though we're remote. We're in a group chat all the time saying, "Hey, I put in this week, hey, my customer needs a rack for bolsters. What do you think? What do you guys think is the best option?" And people are sending me back, "Oh, I just saw this one, somewhere else," or, "Hey, I got this one for here." So we're definitely a tight knit group and very supportive. So even though maybe I cover one area of the country for Henry Schein, it really is a group effort and everyone helps each other.
Yeah. Do you guys get equipment to try out? I mean, not obviously the big stuff, but, tape and all of that, all those different
Yeah.
little things that we get to use in our kits.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely get a lot of things to try and get feedback on. So I was on a call last week with a vendor who makes compression sleeves and I was talking to them about everything. I said, "I really love this one. Can you just make it a little bit shorter? It's too
Mm.
tall for what we normally like in athletic training." So you're able to give feedback to them and they take that. And we also take it from the customers. So, if we're somewhere and somebody says, the valve on this isn't great, we're able to take that back to the manufacturer and say, "Hey, can you look at changing some of these things?" So yeah, I love that part of it for sure is trying things. It is also great to be able to do self-treatment. I am a huge proponent of shockwave therapy. I used that while I was practicing and loved it. So when I came on to Shine and we were actually at a show a couple weeks ago, we brought the shockwave unit with us and oh yes, I'm like, that is going straight onto my patella tendon. I'm able to get some self-treatment in there too, even though I'm not in the athletic training room anymore.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about the educational programs and maybe the lack of exposure to sales. Where can athletic training programs do a better job other than the clinical experience of sales? What else should be in a program to get somebody ready to do this type of position?
Yeah, I think that's a hard question because of how much they are required now to fit into 2 years. It definitely is hard to add in a whole nother layer of
Yeah.
the conversation. So I think that just being able to tell them that that is out there and that this is an option, that this is something that you can do, I think is plenty. All of the vendors that I have interacted with, whether it be at Henry Schein, whether it be at anywhere that, Mueller or, Firefly or Mark Pro, any of those vendors are so happy to talk to athletic trainers and athletic training students about their experience and about, what's going on our side of the industry. So, someone like Adam Edwards at Mark Pro, he was a baseball athletic trainer for 20 years
Mhm.
before over. So, just having the option to be able to talk to these people and to be able to put that out there and say, hey, you can go into sales. This is where you meet vendors. This is how you go through the ordering process, because that's a big part of what we talk about in athletic training education is how do you order supplies? What does that mean? But then another layer to that is you utilize your sales reps for, to help you. They're not there to try to, pull one over on you or try to squeeze something out of you. They're there to help you and advocate for you to your administration as a team effort.
Mhm.
So I think that's a big part of athletic training education that we can continue to lean on is, hey, vendors are your teammates. Vendors are absolutely your teammates. So utilize them in whatever way that may be, whether it may be, because you want to go into that realm and you have questions, or because, you're going to be a college, head athletic trainer and you're going to be in the clinical setting for the long run and you want to make the most out of your budget every year. And they are your teammates in supporting those needs.
Well, we went everywhere and anywhere in this conversation, but is there anything that you want to talk about that we didn't really cover?
No, I think we covered a lot. I think, my overall message always is that if this is something that athletic trainers want to do, then it absolutely is an option for everyone. And I think that, my message is not to convince people to leave clinical athletic training. I think a lot of the work that, you're doing, a lot of the work that people are doing by bringing athletic training out of the shadows is going to improve the clinical athletic training experience and the clinical athletic training world. Absolutely. So I commend you and I commend everyone else who's pushing those conversations forward and is not scared to talk about these hard things out loud, because I think that is what, maybe held us back for a long period of time, is being, you can't talk about things. You can't be in the spotlight. You can't post anything. You can't be out there and let people know, because that is how we will get recognition and that is how we will be able to advocate for ourselves and move forward.
Definitely. Yeah. I think everybody's saying the same things. It's just nobody wants to actually put it out there for everybody to talk and discuss about. So it's bringing everybody together and creating solutions, because I just don't like the divide of, the master's program is a big one. I don't think a lot of people got their opinions heard, and we didn't get to work through some of the troubles or not problems. I don't know, like some of the things that are not clearly stated on why we went on that route in education. So, I think everybody deserves to be heard, and if we're going to all move together in one direction. So thank you for saying that.
Of course, yeah.
So if anybody wants to follow you or learn more, how's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram is SportsMed with Julia. I'll put some information out there about sales, about different events that I'll be at. I always love to meet people in person. Like I said, it's conference season now, so I'll be at a few shows. I'll be at NATA this year. I'd love to meet everyone if they stop by the Henry Schein booth. And then also my LinkedIn, I post content there about different ways that you can get into sales or different athletic topics. It is Julia Della Rosa on LinkedIn. So either one of those, you can shoot me a DM and I'd be happy to talk to anyone about, whatever.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely give her a follow and see what she's talking about so you can learn more. But thank you so much, Julia, for being on. I definitely learned a lot more about sales, and definitely want to keep my eye on it for future opportunities. Thank you so much.
Bye.
That's it for today's episode of To the Bone. I hope we've sparked some new thoughts, challenged your perspectives, or simply reminded you to dig a little deeper. Remember, life isn't just about what's on the surface. Sometimes you've got to cut deeper and get to the bone of what really matters. To the Bone podcast is a product of Daily LLC. It's hosted and produced by Shelby Daly, ATC, and Randy Daly. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. For more on the show, visit www.tothebonepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Get involved in the conversation. You can find us at www.tothebonepodcast.com. Drop us topic suggestions or be a potential guest. We're all about connecting with you, our listeners. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep cutting deep.